Uh, I really can't give you a sensible answer. Your question is not. I'm not putting down your question. Your question is perfectly sensible, but I can't make a sensible answer to you. So I won't even try.
You want to entertain when you write a story. Are you also? Do you have any other purpose, such as to reform the world, or do you have a view of the world you'd like to have people take on?
Well, yes and no. If I do, I generally... it's something that you can't hardly help. Just the way that you string words together, almost. There's a word I can't think of again. It means set forth a view of the universe. Or you not establish a point of view, propound. You propound a world view every time you put one word after the other. This is the most elemental answer to this question, but what the question you want answered is, for instance, if I'm believe in free land, am I...
do
I
sort of the general...
Yeah. Well, essentially, I think perhaps that I am... I would say perhaps there is a bias in that I believe in that traditions are very valuable, and that by forgetting traditions, destroying traditions, that the human race is losing tremendously. I like to see old things preserved, old ways of speech, old
because
customs,
we repeat
old
our
music.
Mistakes otherwise?
Not so much that, but it's just that as we all know, as we're going through life, we get a great deal of pleasure out of the complexity of life. Now, traditions add to the complexity. If you destroy traditions and odd customs and arbitrary ways of doing things, well, for instance, look at the difference between baseball and soccer, for instance. I think soccer is deadly dull. I like baseball. What's the difference between these two things? One, baseball is a very arbitrary game. It's full of odd little rules, strange things. You can't do this, but you must do that. Soccer, you stand one end and kick the ball to the other end, and the other people kick the ball back again. There are one or two rules in soccer, so I'm told, that do make the game a little bit less, or a little bit more complicated than this. But essentially, that's what it is. One team is trying to kick the ball that way, the other team is trying to kick the ball that way. From my point of view, it's deadly dull. Now, the more arbitrary, for instance, take the difference between chess and checkers again. Checkers is not a simple game, but chess is so much more complicated, and also much more interesting than checkers is, because it's got a lot of arbitrary regulations and rules. Now, if you simplify life so that it's like checkers or soccer, then also you're making it very dull. Now, if you have a lot of arbitrary, meaningless customs, even if they're kind of pointless, even if you're aware of them. For instance, an Englishman tells me that in England it's absolutely legal to urinate on the roadside wheel of a car. It's a right guaranteed you by the Queen. You may do this. It's common law. However, if you did this on any other wheel, you'd be dragged away as a common nuisance, you see. Now, but that's one of these arbitrary laws, you see, that make it okay. If you're in England, you come out of a pub, mind you, the left roadside wheel of the vehicle. Choose that one. Don't go to the other wheels. You throw it. But anyway,
that's great.
This is one of these little arbitrary things which many of these rules persist in England, you see, and of course they cherish these things, cherish traditions. And I feel that we should do the same here. Our life goes past so fast, one thing is fashion. This is one of these little arbitrary things which many of these rules persist in England, you see, and of course they cherish these things, cherish traditions. And I feel that we should do the same here. Well, our life goes past so fast, you know. The one thing is fashionable today and it's dead dog tomorrow.
It's kind of tough to hit the wheels.
That's right, yeah, especially these new Camaros whizzing past. First, yeah, how about a skateboard? That would be kind of a problem.
Are things going too fast? Are those wheels turning too rapidly? Do we not pay attention to some of the things we should be paying attention to?
Well, it's a truism to point out, or not to point out, but we all realize it, owing to communications being as they are today, that an idea gets transmitted backwards and forwards at the speed of light, and people get bored with it very quickly, and fashions come every week, whereas 100 years ago they came every year, so to speak. 100 years before that they came every 2 or 3 years, and who knows what's going to happen tomorrow.
Is that whole true for writing? Is the writing too fast?
I would say so, yeah, sure.
Too flashy, no depth to it?
Well, I don't know that those are two different too fast, no depth, those are two different things. In other words, it could be that you might have different styles in writing and they all be absolutely profound and absolutely Shakespeare succeeding each other. It might be. It's not without possibility. But I would say, it's something that can be helped. Again, it's a matter of accepting reality. If we want to have, or if we live in this world where we live with these communications like we're doing tonight here, you see, we're all conniving in this whole thing, sitting around this thing, explaining our ideas to countless millions of people.
Right. Oh, 500.
But whether it's right or wrong is beside the point. It just happens to exist, and so we live with it.
You know, something that does come through after doing this for a while, that is that we're saying a great deal more than we think we are. And you're saying things in so many words that could be analyzed without perhaps realizing the subtlety of the actual message that's being transmitted. When we open the phones up on a program, you can tell whether you've communicated or not by the people who call. And they may not ask any questions that depart at all from what you've said.
Yeah.
But certain of our guests have brought forth an entirely different part of the audience for the call. And not so much because of anything they said on the surface, but because of that underlying message, whatever it is.
Let's find out.
You want to do that?
Sure, let's try that.
You want to take some telephone calls?
Let's take some telephone calls. Our guest is Jack Vance, and the number to call is 985-5735.
Can we get some air in here?
Yes, we can get some air in
Are
here.
you prepared for these calls?
Oh, I don't care, at least. No, you know.
And if you have a question or a comment or an opinion.
No.
What in the world is that? Bert Handelsman, our crack engineer, just brought in a very strange dessert.
Black Forest
People
Torch.
brought in some other stuff.
Good Lord, what is going on here?
Elder Torch.
Well, you invited people down here, and they bring refreshments.
It's a great addition.
A cup of coffee.
Okay, Bert, we get a cup of coffee, black?
Yeah.
Oh, incredible.